guys, it's Victoria and welcome back to FemmeHead. Today we are going to talk about getting Theo to eat more food and more of a variety of food. For the longest time with Theo, he got sick at 4 months, and because he's a small child and he's been like the first to third percentile since he was like born, basically. He was actually like the 50th percentile when he's born because he was 8 pounds 6 ounces, and then he just wasn't. He was just a tiny kid, and he's still a small kid, but he's healthy. Someone has to be the first percenters. Introducing your baby to food, and then once they make that transition from relying on breast milk or formula for their calories and nutrition to real table food, it wasn't stressful, but I always had this worry of him getting in enough because he's been small and his weight has always been something we've kept our eye on between like us and our pediatrician. So it caused a little bit of anxiety and stress, and I want to talk about our experience today, and not fully, but a little bit. He currently has 2 bottles of milk a day, and he is just on like whole milk when he wakes up in the morning, and then he gets 4 ounces like as part of his bedtime routine. And he doesn't need those bottles. He doesn't need it for like calories or nutrition, like merely a comfort thing. Drinks from cups, drinks from straws, all of that, so it's not hurting him developmentally either, so we don't see any harm in it at the moment. He eats breakfast, lunch, and dinner just like normal humans, and then he has 2 to 3 snacks a day. We didn't follow a particular method when it comes to introducing food or giving our baby food. I would say it was like a combination of baby-led weaning and like mashed or pureed foods, and he has almost always eaten some version of what Michael and I have eaten, just because who has time to cook a whole bunch of different meals? And so we would just adapt whatever it was that we were eating for him. And so when he was younger, we would like mash it up for him and not give him the things that he couldn't like mash between his gums. But then once he got teeth, we would give him things that he could kind of chew on, but he wouldn't choke on if he didn't chew it completely. And so yeah, we've just always adapted what we've eaten for him. And I think that has definitely helped him just try more foods and not be super picky. He has his things that he's picky about still. We didn't really do baby food. We have done pouches of like fruits and vegetables because I'll talk about it, but he's very picky when it comes to fruits and their textures and how squishy they are. And so we would do like pureed, like smoothie sort of things to get in fruits. I highly recommend following the Feeding Littles Instagram account. My sister, I think, originally recommended them, but then my best friend also follows them. Ended up like taking one of their courses. I don't know, I just love like baby courses, man, they get me. I want to say he was about a year old because I was just having troubles getting him to like eat larger amounts of food. I was just worried about him getting in enough, but he's fine now. And so anyways, I recommend them. Try to eat your meals in the same place. Kids and babies thrive off of routine and schedules, knowing what to expect. When I get in my high chair, like that means it's time to eat, contains them. He doesn't always eat every single meal in his high chair. We usually eat breakfast like in the living room watching the news, just because like that's just our routine. I think if he had an issue eating or eating enough, we would then transition to having breakfast in the dining room. Lunch and dinner for sure are in the dining room in his high chair. Snacks, I'm a little bit more flexible. Usually we'll have like snacks at the kitchen island. He'll be in his like little toddler tower, or if we're like on the go, or sometimes I'll just get him like a granola bar or like a kid's protein bar, and he'll like wander around with that. He always eats his snacks. Once again, I think if we had an issue, I'd make him eat them in his high chair. Create a sense of like routine and normalcy, and like, okay, these things mean that it's time to eat. It's also very important to eat as a family as much as possible. So even if you're not super hungry for a full meal, like eat a little something, especially if they see you eating the same things as them, may make them more willing to try a certain food they're hesitant about, or just eat more because they're like, oh, mom and dad's eating, like I'm gonna eat too. So when possible, like eat your meals at a table together, or just eat them at the same time. Like that's like a family tradition or whatever that I want to have anyways, or like a family habit. You have to offer new foods so many times before they take to them. And it's not even like, oh, once they eat them once, they'll eat it again. It's like, oh, they could eat steamed carrots this time, hate them the next 2 times, love them 3 times, and then hate them again. Like, so it's so important to be consistent, but then also like serving them in different ways, like how they're cut, how they're cooked, how they're seasoned or whatever. So I think that's one big thing I've learned is even if they turn their nose up to something one time, you should not be like, oh, well, they don't like broccoli, I'm never gonna give that to them again. Just go like, oh, okay, like not today, and then try again at the next meal or the next day or a couple days later. And that's just been something that's been very helpful, realizing that even if he doesn't like grapes one day, he might love them and eat 40 of them the next day. Okay, Theo is very picky when it comes to the textures of fruit. He loves vegetables, he loves beans, he loves anything carbohydrates, but fruit is our sticking point. There's certain ones like apples, grapefruit, yeah, any citrus fruit, grapes he's finally taking to, but like strawberries, blueberries, the most delicious fruits, he'll be like, it's something about the mushiness of them, or I think for strawberries, it's the texture of the skin. It's just one of those things, like we consistently keep offering those things to him, but most of the time he's just like, oh God, no, like that's terrible. And also just because babies make a face when they eat something doesn't mean they don't like it. Textures of fruits are very interesting. So I, in the same way, like I don't like mushy blueberries. I don't like mushy watermelon. And I think he's very similar to me in that way. Like he likes firm fruit. And so I make sure I'm not giving him mushy fruit. If the fruit has gone mushy or whatever, just put it in like a smoothie or something, or like mash it up into oatmeal. There are ways to like get it in, but just like serving it as a snack, he's very particular about, like he needs a little bit of like crunch and crisp to it. Serve the foods in different ways. Like I said, how you prepare them, like cut them, cook them, all of that sort of stuff. Because avocado is another one, like I love avocado, but Theo can be very particular about it. Like one day he loves it, the other day doesn't. Like he's not an avocado toast child, but if it's in like a burrito bowl sort of situation, he'll eat that. So if it's with other things, you can saute it, you can bake it, try different ways of cooking it, because that just also helps expand their palate. Let your child make a mess of their food. I know it's so hard to be like, you want to just wipe it up really quickly, keep them from like throwing food. When they're babies, like they're not throwing their food to be malicious. They're not mashing their food to be malicious, like, or naughty or any of that. Like they're just discovering it. They're exploring it. And it's really important for them to play with their food, to discover like the texture of it, the feeling of it, and getting it on their hands and all over their face. Get a high chair you can wipe down really easily. Cover your chair with a towel. His chair has a like bath towel on it, and then his high chair. Some people just have like high chairs, but ours, like, it's like a booster seat high chair. And then under his high chair is like a big circular plastic mat, because not a day goes by that the child does not get food on the floor. And then that keeps you from worrying about it getting on like the rug or the carpet or anything like that. If you're quick to like wipe their hands off or wipe their face off, that can teach them to have a negative association with eating and like being messy. And so they can be hesitant to like touch their food or make a mess. And so yeah, just let your babies and toddlers be messy. And at a certain age, like you can start teaching them like, oh, we don't throw our food, or if you throw your fork on the floor so many times, I'm not going to pick it up anymore, because it can turn into a game. But when they're little, like when they're babies, let them just mash and make a mess. I know I'm going to get questions about like Theo's diet, because I don't eat like dairy, eggs, meat, that sort of stuff. He doesn't, I mean, I'm not gonna like label my child. He's his own person. Michael is much more like vegetarian than I am. Theo's had those things, and he has whole milk. And as far as dairy and eggs go, I'm fine with him having that, because I don't want him to create an allergy to that for later in his life if he does decide that he like wants to eat those things. But he hasn't had meat, and I don't foresee us feeding him meat, because that's just not something that's in our diet. He drinks whole cow's milk, and then he's had like cheese, and I think he's had like eggs twice, I want to say, just because of like something Michael's ordered at a place. But yeah, eggs isn't something we have at home, because I don't like the smell of them. He loves beans, he loves tofu, he loves any sort of like meat alternative, and so he is getting his like protein and nutrition. Like I'm obviously very conscious of that, making sure he is getting those things elsewhere, since we don't feed him meat. Another thing to say about babies and toddlers is some days they are a bottomless pit and they will eat everything under the sun, and other days they won't. But babies and toddlers, like, they know how much they need to eat. They have that intuition. And so it is important for you to kind of like respect that, because that just teaches them to listen to their body and like whether they're full or not, or whether they're hungry or not. And so if one day they're not eating that much, it's not the end of the world. Another big thing from feeding littles that I learned was like, your only job is to like make sure you're providing them with meals, and it's their job to decide whether they want to eat those or not. Oh, I also say another important thing is like, if he doesn't eat a ton at a meal, it's not like, oh, like, do you want to have this, pouch? We don't offer him like alternatives. Yes, during like snack time and stuff like that, I'm like, do you want this or this? And he'll like point to something, and who knows if he even cares, but I think he does. But it's not like, oh, you don't want that for dinner, like I'll make you something else. It's like, no, this is your well-balanced meal. It's your choice whether you want to eat it or not. And he always eats it. So that's what I have to say about Mr. Theo eating. He is a good little eater. If you are concerned about your child eating, just like stick to it. I do recommend feeding littles. They were very, very helpful, especially their course. And it is like, some of it's just like common sense stuff, but sometimes it takes hearing it from someone else to actually have it sink in. But yeah, they are just full of so much good knowledge. So I recommend at least following them on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want me to do a video of like what my 1-year-old eats in a day, let me know. That could be fun to film. It also could be very hard to film. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.